Cheers.
All right. Well, we're broadcasting, so I guess let's officially get started. Obviously, my name is George Atallah. I work for the NFL Players Association. Thanks for coming to hang out today. Really cool platform on Google+. This is the second time I'll be doing a hangout on Google+. And James and Rick, why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
I'm James. I'm from Colorado, and I do a show on the Google+. That's all about the NFL.
Okay.
All right, Rick Saratella here from the NFL Draft Bible. As a lot of people know, I've been broadcasting on the Google Plus community as well. Looking forward to it, and a lot of interesting topics to discuss.
Okay. Well, have at it. Why don't you? I don't have a particular agenda here to talk about, so I want to hear from you what kind of things you want to talk about or no.
Absolutely. The interesting news item that came across my desk this week was, the fact that RG3 broke the single-season record in sales for NFL jerseys, and we're used to RG3 breaking records on the field and rookie records and all that good stuff. But I found it a little bit intriguing just because you talk about, these companies, everybody looking to get into the football industry. When you talk about Rawlings, that has a very big baseball name, traditionally looking to get into the NFL equipment market. You talk about Under Armour trying to get into the sneaker business and donating sneakers to kids at the combine and pro day workouts and things of that nature. And now, last year you had Nike acquiring the jersey rights to the NFL. Previously it was Reebok. So I was curious to you, George, do you think it was something in particular that maybe Nike did on their marketing and branding side of things, or maybe something the NFL did differently this year? Because when I think back in years past, you talk about Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Tim Tebow. There's been some very popular jerseys. So I'm just curious to know that with Nike hopping on board as the new jersey manufacturer, if there was anything done differently on the marketing side of things.
I think they definitely made a marketing push. I think one of the things we've seen just from a marketing and licensing perspective is that the business grew significantly. Mm-hmm. To the specific point about RG3, I think, obviously Robert's a very unique talent and a unique person. The way, we live in NFL Players Associations here in D.C., we're very lucky that we get to go see him play in person. He's just one of those unique transformational type of athletes, and beyond just being a football player, I think he's got as the numbers show, he's got a great marketability. I also think, though, one of the things that for people that are watching, we are one of the only sports unions that has a wholly owned subsidiary called Players Inc., where we do license all of the jerseys as well. So you'll see here in the next couple of months, with the draft coming up in particular, and also with our own rookie premiere in May, that more and more companies, trading cards, the companies that make the jerseys, the manufacturers and apparel manufacturers, are looking more to every rookie class for growth. That's where they really see the growth. And last year we had a particularly phenomenal rookie class, and hopefully this year we'll have the same.
Yeah, I just know the quarterbacks are no good right now.
How do you know?
I do. None of them are worth a first-round draft pick right now.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens on draft night.
Yeah. Well, my question is, how are the players know Roger Goodell? How do they feel about him? What he's doing?
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff out there about how players feel about Roger. I think, primarily as far as I'm concerned, people understand and players understand what his role is, and players understand what our role is. Without getting too personal about it, this is almost approaching a $10 billion a year business. There are 31 billionaire owners out there that are, obviously run the clubs, run the teams, have input into the way that business is done. Roger, as the commissioner, has a responsibility to them. He has said that he's got a responsibility to the game, and we feel the same way. So, a lot of these things are not not personal, I would think. They're rooted in how players understand our respective roles, and quite frankly, some of that came out of the lockout in 2011.
So speaking to Commissioner Godell, he's done a lot of things, I think, in my opinion, personally, to help grow what has already been a popular offseason. You talk about the NFL draft. It's now a primetime event. Usually back in the day, you talk about the infamous Aaron Rodgers green room incident. There was maybe 3 or 4 players invited to the draft. Now you see maybe 20, 26 guys invited to the draft, and they have events all week long, red carpet and things of that nature. One of the things I see being tossed out on the rumor mill on the lovely internet world is the NFL is actually considering moving back the season or moving back the Super Bowl, which would eventually push back the NFL offseason, maybe prolong even the draft season a little bit. So really, where you had June and July, maybe was kind of down months. If they push everything back a month, there really is no offseason. Is that what the NFL is ultimately shooting for long term? And also, being executive director of the NFLPA, have you spoken to any players about prolonging and pushing everything back, and what has their reaction been?
Well, one clarification: there's only one executive director of the NFLPA, and that's D. Smith, and that's who I report to technically, and obviously I work for the players, but we'll get him on a hangout pretty soon. But to your question about the off season, our new collective bargaining agreement does call for the longest off season that the sport has ever had. So obviously there are opportunities out there that you mentioned the draft, and I think the league in general has done a tremendous job of marketing the draft, making it a primetime event. I think 2 years ago, and even last year, viewership was like 40 million people, which is more than what people watched in terms of baseball and basketball and hockey playoffs combined, which is a pretty staggering number. But those are all, I think, positive things. How we structure the off season, the latest on that is we did get a proposal from the NFL on adjusting the off-season schedule, if you will. Players and our player leadership will get together and provide them with a counter proposal. To be quite blunt, the only thing we don't make decisions about how to move things in the off-season that impact players in a vacuum, so we'll just have to see what players say to us about, in particular, free agency, because I think that's a big issue, is moving it back. I think for players and agents in particular, it can't start soon enough every year. So you'll have to stay tuned for any changes that come about there.
And just to follow up on the draft, I know we got some new guys jumping in. I want to give them the opportunity as well. But since we're talking about the draft, and NFL Europe is no longer. I know the NFL plays a couple games over there every season. But you're seeing a more impact of international players. You talk about a Menelik Watson. You talk about a Margus Hunt from Estonia. I'm just curious to know, is there any plans to develop another minor league infrastructure for the NFL, or do you think, you hear about the USFL starting back up? I know the UFL tried to start something up. Do you ever foresee the NFL kind of going down that road of having a developmental league for the minor league players?
That's a good question. And, the tongue-in-cheek answer is they already have a free developmental league in college. So, you look at the way that college football kind of dominates the scene as well. I think I can definitely speak to the point on internationally. You're going to see 2 games in London this year, as opposed to the one that we've traditionally had. I read something the other day about I think it was an Olympic shot putter that made a ridiculous impression at one of the regional combines. So the interest in the game is definitely growing, and that's a good thing for all of us. From the Players Association and from a player's perspective, it makes a lot of sense to continue to look at those opportunities, and we want to be partners in that because we benefit ultimately. But developmental league, trust me, Nick Saban at Alabama's got that covered, it looks like. We did have somebody else join, so why don't I give you the chance to introduce yourself. Joby.
Hi, my name is Joby, and I had a quick question for you regarding player safety. Sorry, there's a bunch of people in the room right now. What's the NFL Players Association looking at as far as technology to improve player safety?
Okay, so if I heard your question right, given some of the background noise, what's our position on using technology to improve player safety? Yeah, okay, so it's you've seen reports recently about potentially using iPads on the sidelines to run the concussion tests. The most, the other thing that seems to be brewing on the technology is the helmet sensors. So how to track concussions and blows to the head and all that kind of stuff. Look, I think you won't see us stand against it. I think we are very interested in seeing technology move in the way that medicine has gone, frankly, in America and in the practice in general, where technology is driving a lot of the conversations around curing a lot of the injuries that maybe 10, 15 years ago took 3-4 times as long to recover from. A lot of that is because of technology. So we're not opposed to it. Certainly, when you get down to a micro level, again, let's take the iPads on the sideline for concussions. The technology is only as good as the user, right? So if you are on the sidelines and you're a doctor and you've got the iPad there to try and track a concussion, but you don't go through the protocols or you don't recognize that that player's had a concussion in the first place, what good is the technology? So the implementation of it and the people behind it are just as important. I've got a couple of questions in the chat here, but James, why don't you go ahead? I know you had one too.
Yeah, I'm wondering about what do the running backs think of the no leading with the crown of the helmet now?
I mean, look, the rules changes in general are things where, to use the NFL's term, the game has evolved. You saw the rash of offensive players obviously state their displeasure by it. We'll see how the first year goes with it, how the officials call it, how the league kind of governs it. We'll just have to see how it goes. It's not the first time or the first year that a rule change has been implemented. Obviously, for you, James, the tuck rule is now gone, so I don't know if that makes you happy or sad. Yeah, see, happy, see. So I always got one for you. Players adjust. We keep a close eye on all of those things, and we'll see how it goes through the season. I got 2 questions here from a user that couldn't make it, Jack McKeon. What's our position on the NFL's possible international expansion? And then the second is the NFLPA's future in the development of an American football talent athletes outside of the U.S. Joby, that's kind of the same thing that you kind of asked about. International expansion is fantastic. I was talking to somebody about it today. I think it's awesome that a guy like Ocho Cinco is friends with Ronaldo. The personalities involved in our game. You see a lot more actually of the player's personality coming out, and I think that's along with growing the game itself, using players and having them be the core part of the outreach internationally, I believe is really important.
Well, George, if I can delve back into some of the evolution of the league that we've been talking about, I think 5 years ago you started to see a real big explosion on the NFL draft coverage. I think 10 years ago you saw the fantasy football explosion. The next thing I see in terms of ratings and fan interest and things of that nature is the NFL Scouting Combine. I feel like, this is a nationally televised event now on the NFL Network where ratings continue to increase. And I know that there was a survey or a poll or some sort that went out to some customers gauging their interest to see if they would be willing to pay $25 to enter the NFL Scouting Combine and actually pay to watch that event. Is the NFL Scouting Combine now where the NFL draft was 5 years ago and fantasy football was 10 years ago. Is the NFL Scouting Combine now this next phenomenon that the NFL is going to capitalize on? Because you talk about the obsession with 40-yard dash times. Keenan Allen yesterday, for example, you know, he runs in the 4.7s, and now we're questioning whether he's a first-round quarterback or not. And I think the evolution of social media as well, I think everybody thinks they're a draft expert, and for them to hop on Twitter or Facebook and be able to comment on the NFL Scouting Combine, I'm just curious if that will one day be open to fans. I know there's been some experiment with some media kind of coming onto the field and watching it, but what's the long-term vision in terms of growing the NFL Scouting Combine?
Well, obviously it was a bigger combine this year than it's ever been. You know, NFL Network covers that thing wall to wall. I know, you know, it's of great interest to people because it's the lead up to the draft, obviously, and because we have a longer off season. So now that's an opportunity for a lot of networks to generate news coverage out of it, and the league gets a lot of coverage out of it. I mean, look, I personally, you couldn't pay me enough money to dress up in skinny tights and little outfits and run the 40. I know, you know, the running joke every year is how fast Rich Eisen's going to do it. Even if he runs it in a suit and tie out there, next year I want to see you, Rich, run it in what the players are wearing. Okay, that I would pay money to watch that. But you know, anything NFL, if you just put, and that's the great and the beauty of how our game has grown and the impact of football, really. Anything NFL, there's a hunger for. There's an insatiable appetite for players, for the game, for the league, for the 40-yard dash, for seeing a guy walk across the stage and give Roger a hug and put the team hat on. People want to watch anything related to football, and it's compelling and it's fantastic. I just think where we come in, you know, we try to layer a little bit of realism with that and make sure that player rights are protected, that their health and safety is protected, and you know, that's really primarily our role.
Right now, I know the NFL is trying to focus on fan base at the stadium to improve their experience. What do they think about doing a halftime thing with the fans, with selected fans, like punt, pass, and catch?
You mean like you want to go out there and punt a football at halftime?
Yeah.
So really, what you're saying is you want to go out at halftime and try and kick a field goal or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think the fans doing it.
I think they do a lot of that on the youth level. You do have the punt, pass, and kick competition. I think I got that right. At the youth level, where the winners or the regional winners are invited to show off their skills at halftime of the game. But look, it's the league has said it's a real challenge to make sure that we've got tickets in stadiums sold out and people going to the games. That's why you saw a couple weeks ago, or even more recently than that, that they want to do now cameras in the locker room. Again, because there's this insatiable kind of, not just this insatiable appetite for the game, but we want to make sure that people are not just watching on TV, but going to the stadiums. I don't know. I mean, I think the leagues does some of that already, but it's up to the individual clubs, I think, to do a little bit more of that.
Hey, George, any chance that you could maybe speculate a little bit on the HBO Hard Knocks episode? Will there definitely be another season of Hard Knocks this year? And if so, any speculation yet on what teams possibly?
The short answer is I don't know. Hard Knocks was and still is a very good program. I know HBO loves to do it. Some of the teams not so much, given some of the they're preparing for football and they see it as a little bit of a distraction. I get that, but I think for the fans it's a very cool thing, and it's up to HBO and the team to work that out. I can just tell you directly, I have no idea if a team is considering it, who HBO's reached out to. not something that I particularly follow closely. I've watched a bunch of episodes of it, obviously, and followed the seasons, but can't tell you.
George, I had a quick question for you. It comes back to my technology question. With RFIDs and other technologies, teams are able to track players on the field and see game per game. Has this player lost a step? How fast is he running? How is he hitting the hole? They can get a lot more analytics from the players by having them wear RFIDs and other technologies. How would this be adopted? Would you think the players would welcome this adoption, or do you think they would resist it based on the increased scrutiny that they would receive?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, even now when you turn on SportsCenter on a Monday and you see a player, break off a long run or a kickoff return or anything of the sort, you get that little ESPN tracker of how fast that player ran down the field. So I think part of it's inevitable and unavoidable, where we kind of would have some questions about it. To your point, is how would it be used officially, right? So if you're, I don't know, if you're doing like the Nike Plus thing and putting a little chip in a guy's shoe just to see how long he's run, how far he's run, et cetera, what type of implications would that mean for the player? Are there contract implications for the player? I mean, even now, player contracts and some of the benefits that they get are built around, how many snaps they played during the season. So, those are the types of things that we would look to get answered if we did get to a point where some of that technology was going to be introduced.
On the same topic of technology, what do you think players would have if they put a G-force chip in there and it was sent to the iPad? If they haven't the G-force is enough to cause a concussion.
Again, I don't know. I know whatever the technology, it's the HITS system, that's used at Virginia Tech right now. That's been something that has been on our radar screen for a while. So it's the same sort of thing. Those are the questions that we would ask. What's the medicine behind it? What type of implementation is a best practice or would be most effective? And then the last thing is, do the answers to those first two questions then go to is it going to improve the health and safety of players?
Is that something that you foresee fans getting a chance to maybe get pushed to their own personal devices and see, like, wow, that was a hit that registered 10 on this meter, or that was a weaker hit? Is that something you would see increasing the fan experience?
I mean, the fan experience is pretty high as it is right now, whether you're at the stadium or at home. So
it can always get better.
Yeah, well, you'd be, again, all of those things. I think there's a hunger for information and a hunger for data. Fantasy football is the perfect example, right? There are different leagues with different scoring. Some of them are general scoring. Some leagues now that I've heard of have a level of detail on the statistics that they use that's like almost baseball-like, right? So you do have a group of fans that are more hungry or hungrier for more data, if you will. On this HITS stuff, I don't know that I need a tracker to know that Ed Reed hits guys pretty hard, or that Adrian Peterson, James, runs pretty fast. It's kind of an amazing game. Have you guys, by the way, I mean, one of the things that I'll brag a little bit for a second. Have you guys ever experienced the game like close to the field?
I have not, but my dad did security one day in 2000. The Arizona-Minnesota game.
I've been on the field for college games, but never on the field for an NFL game.
I mean, even for a college game, it is staggering the size, strength, and speed of the athletes. So I would say that there is something to going to the stadium that you can't necessarily, get on your television screen. It's that kind of like, oh my gosh factor, if you will. And once some of the hits that you hear are legal, clean hits, you can hear all the way in the upper deck. And that's just the way that the game has been played. And obviously, we want to make it a safer game, but people go to watch football for a lot of the reason for the content.
Just to follow up on that, George, there's been a lot of talk about a lot of NFL stadiums possibly carrying the NFL Red Zone package in the stadium and kind of airing that in between, whether it's a timeout, whether it's a TV commercial break. Is that something that's on the table for teams? Is that going to be regulated by the NFL, or would that be handled on a team-by-team basis? And do you foresee the NFL Red Zone airing in NFL stadiums?
I've heard the commissioner and I've heard the league say that they want to increase, for example, very basic Wi-Fi capabilities in all the stadiums. So by that virtue alone, I think you'll see people, have their iPads and other mobile devices and tablets and all that kind of thing, and stream Red Zone through whatever provider that they have. But in terms of, I don't know, let's just take the most glaring example. You go to Cowboys Stadium and Red Zone's playing on that HD Jumbotron all the time. Again, I don't know how that's I don't know how that would work. I can certainly see like a halftime thing, Red Zone playing, or
like with their rivals division.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you already see. I mean, again, having been to a bunch of games, you already see some of the top highlights. And as you get later in the season, to your point, if there's a playoff race, touchdown gets scored by the other team. There's a highlight that's played. Fans go crazy or not go crazy. But I think the improved experience and introducing Wi-Fi, as the league has said, will open up a lot of different opportunities for content.
I think it was talking about like a person like me. I don't get the Red Zone, where they can watch it without paying.
What do you mean?
Because I don't receive it, but put it on the Jumbotron.
Is that because of your cable carrier, or is because you don't want to pay?
I just don't want to pay.
Oh, okay.
It's
so what
both,
you're saying?
Actually.
What's that?
It's both. My cable carrier doesn't provide it, and also I don't want to pay for it.
Oh, okay. Well.
But someone like me that doesn't want to pay for it can see it still at the stadium, exactly at the stadium, with their rivals. Like you say, Minnesota was playing Detroit. They can show the Green Bay highlights.
Okay.
Or Chicago highlights for that day when they're playing.
And you're saying that if you go to a stadium where those two teams are not playing,
yeah,
but you want to see highlights of that game,
yeah,
is that
like
a bad thing?
Like a big play, like a major touchdown or something.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, like a touchdown for that team.
Okay.
Your rival team.
I guess my question back to you is then, you're already going to a stadium to watch that specific team play. You're getting some of the highlights. If we improve Wi-Fi, there'll probably be some opportunities for you to follow those other games on your mobile device, tablet, whatever it is. All of
I have Verizon, so I get the NFL Mobile.
Okay, well.
Free.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yeah, but people with Verizon doesn't have that highlight because ESPN Sports Center does not have highlights on it.
Yeah, they do. Sports Center does the highlights.
No, the Score Center, the app.
Yeah.
Does not have the highlights.
You're right. Score Center does not do the highlights. That's right.
That's what I'm saying. For people that don't have Verizon or Red Zone, can see the highlights of their rival team.
Okay. Well, I don't know if again, according to you, Rick, that was something that they're considering doing in the stadium. So we'll just have to see if they introduce it.
I hope they do. It'll be good for people to see their rival team without paying for something.
Yeah, I think just to interject here, I think what a lot of fans want is during those timeouts, during those TV breaks, during those half times. I think fans want to see the Red Zone channel on the big screen if you're at Cowboy Stadium on the big 80-inch or however big it is, 800 feet. I think that's
That
kind
thing is
of
huge.
yeah. So I think that's kind of where some of the fans are going. But you know, my next question was going to actually take us to the LA market, because it's been quite a while now since the NFL's had a team in Los Angeles, and you know, it is one of the biggest markets in the United States. So I don't really foresee the NFL expanding. Is there any kind of potential that a team might move to Los Angeles? I mean, we hear so much speculation. What do you personally feel is the NFL's stance in terms of embracing an NFL team in Los Angeles?
Well, I think LA's a phenomenal market in general. I mean, it's the second largest media market in the country, obviously. Players have said to me personally, and have said in a number of different places, that they'd love to see a Los Angeles team. The beauty of my answer is that we'd love to see it, but I don't own a team, and so I can't tell you if any team is planning on moving there, or if they're going to add a team there. I just don't know. We've been following closely, obviously, the two different proposed sites for a potential NFL stadium. But beyond that, and beyond, you know, talking to players who say they'd love to go and see a team there, you know, there's not much the Players Association can do about it at this time.
Like, what about having two teams play there, like, once a week?
Oh, like a neutral site deal?
A neutral site, yeah.
Yeah, but then you're taking a home game away from a team.
Like you're doing that with the over in London. You're taking a home game away from them.
Yeah, you are, but again, I think, you know, well, first of all, it's a moot point right now because there's not an NFL-ready stadium, according to the league, in Los Angeles proper. But with London, I think there's a different setup, and there's an international kind of reason or rationale why, or growth potential of the game internationally as to why we're doing a game or two games this year in London. Interesting thought, though, on the neutral site game, but I'd be surprised if London's one thing. It's kind of a special experience. Los Angeles, taking a team, you know, taking a Tampa Bay home game and putting it in LA, you know, I don't know how the fan base would react to that.
George, just like to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk to us. I have to get back to work, so I just wanted to say hi.
All right, Joby Joy, take care. All right, so Rick and James, just the three of us.
Yeah, you know, I guess the next thing, you know, I guess on my topics is the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, which I thought was wonderful. The fact that it was televised, you had some of the practices on ESPNU, and, you know, I spoke to a lot of players who really embraced, really appreciated, actually, just not the on-the-field practice from some of these great coaching staffs, but actually what the NFL Players Association was able to do for these players in terms of off the field, some of the mentorship programs. I just spoke to a player yesterday who was talking about Deshaun Jackson came in, kind of showed his whole life story. I know Troy Vincent and some other folks kind of come in and speak to players just in terms of their whole financial situation and making that jump to the next level. And I think it's an added dimension and element that you don't see at the other typical all-star games. So can you just elaborate a little bit more on just what kind of advice goes into the mentorship program during that week of the NFLPA Collegiate All-Star Game?
Well, this year was the second year we did it. We have a 3-year agreement with ESPN to broadcast the practices and the games, so we'll have 2 more years of doing the game with them. They were just an awesome partner on this one. And look, the philosophy behind doing the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl is simple. It's to prepare NFL prospects for what their life is going to be like as a professional football player. So they will get a lot of the things that you'll see from traditional football all-star games, professional defensive schemes, offensive schemes, you know, how to implement pro-style offenses and defenses and that kind of thing. But they'll also get 2 additional layers. All of their coaches are Hall of Fame caliber for the most part. All of them played in the NFL or coached in the NFL at the head coaching level. That's a really important thing for us. And then third, which I think is unique, is you add the life skills to it. How do you select an agent if you haven't done so already? What type of financial advisor should you look for, and what type of advice should you get from them? How do you manage your money better? What type of people should you have around you? If you haven't finished your degree in college, here's how you can go about doing that, and the tuition reimbursement benefits that you get as a result. And then finally, they learn about what their union does to protect their rights. I think that's critical. I think you go in as a young, 20, 21, 22-year-old young man, and you just want to do everything that they tell you so that you don't screw up and you make the right impression. And I think what they realize is that, the NFLPA is their union, protects them from doing some of the stuff that, teams and coaches may have gotten away with in years past, and that's part of their education too.
What is the NFLPA doing about these players are doing DUIs and that? How are you guys going to help stop that?
Well, look, I think it's a serious problem. I don't like to see it. We had too many incidents of that take place in the past year. And as far as I'm concerned, one incident is too many incidents. We have a collectively bargained program in place that determines how players are disciplined for that type of behavior. Obviously, there's a legal system and a judicial system in place that players are not above when they go out and are members of society and get behind the wheel. It's the same for all of us. The thing that disappoints me, I think, about this issue is that most people immediately think that a stiffer, stronger, increased punishment is going to deter drinking and driving. Well, maybe, but there also has to be a layer of education, there has to be a layer of communication there, and there has to be a layer of player involvement in whatever all of those things combined can do to deter players from doing bad things in general. So, again, I think players are open to the idea and are certainly willing to talk about how to eliminate that entirely. But to simply say that increased discipline is going to do it, I don't believe, neither do our players believe that's the right answer.
Because I know there's teams have these plans saying what they get people to call if they're going out drinking.
Sure.
How are players going to enforce that? The teams. They're forced to use it with the newer players that are coming in.
We have, and let me just take out my wallet here so I can show you. We have every player gets their union card, right? So it's a little union identification card, and on the back of it, every player has the phone number for something called Player Transportation Link that players can use. It's essentially a confidential car service that they can use if they don't feel like they can drive home. There is a cost associated with it, but it's modest. Every player knows about it, so quite frankly, it's not for a lack of us communicating with players or having that type of information out there. it's a problem that we've got to work together with the league to fix.
Just speaking on some of the things the NFLPA is trying to fix, and I'm not sure it's necessarily broken, just because people talk about the Pro Bowl and how much lack of interest there is in it, but then when the ratings come out, you realize it's one of the most watched sporting events once again with the NFL name on it. Now, we've seen in years past, they've talked about moving the Pro Bowl week before the Super Bowl in the city of the Super Bowl. There's even been some talk that maybe the Senior Bowl would replace the Pro Bowl. I guess my question is, there's so many different mixed opinions. You saw Aaron Rodgers criticize it 2 years ago, saying this is like basically a waste of time. Then you talk about, Peyton Manning this past year talking about, when he looks over on the sidelines and sees Ray Lewis passing on knowledge to the players. If you eliminate the Pro Bowl, you kind of eliminate all that passing down of the knowledge from generation to generation. I guess ultimately what my question becomes here is, I know Dominic Foxworth has been out in front trying to make some changes to the game, drum up more interest. How does the NFLPA feel about the Pro Bowl ultimately, and do you think that some of the proposed changes, like having captains pick the teams and kind of, Peyton and Eli are the two captains and kind of picking their own Pro Bowl teams, is that kind of the path where we're going down?
I think it's a possibility, and certainly you mentioned Dominique Foxworth as being one of the player leaders that has led the charge on not just saving the Pro Bowl, but trying to provide some suggestions and recommendations on how to make it more fan-friendly and interactive. Obviously, there are two things at play, right? You have the health and safety concerns, which are real. Nobody wants to get hurt in a Pro Bowl game. Given how injuries impact players during the regular season, even in preseason, you don't want to go into a game like the Pro Bowl and where your top players are out there putting themselves at risk to get hurt, right? That's number one. But I think the second thing is you have 12 or 15 million people. No, actually, that's incorrect. I think it got like a 12 rating.
Big audience, yeah.
There's a big audience for the Pro Bowl, so you also want to make sure that that there's a fan engagement there, and that when fans tune in, they're going to see a game that they want to watch, a game that is fun to watch, and a game that's competitive. I think that all of those things are fair. Those two things that I mentioned don't necessarily have to be at odds. I think you heard and saw players even this year hold up their end of the bargain where they did play harder than the year before. Maybe they didn't go full speed, but they certainly competed to a level that was better than in years past. You heard Drew Brees say that. You heard, who's the MVP of the game this year? Help me out. I got you stumped.
I changed the channel by the.
Oh, come on. We still got a 12 rating, even though you changed the channel.
I watched the whole thing, but I don't remember who was it. No, it was a Vikings player. I know that.
Okay, so
it was Adrian Peterson, wasn't it?
No,
it was not AP. No. It was one of the other. I think it was Chris Cluey or something like that.
Chris Cluey. No, I think the players all around acknowledge that they did a better job, or that they competed at a higher level than they have in the past, and with what Dominique is trying to do and with what he's trying to propose is to try to make sure that those two things are not at odds, the health and safety side and the fan engagement experience side. So I personally think he has some great recommendations. If we get to a point where Eli's drafting one team and Peyton's drafting the other, if those are the starting quarterbacks for their respective conferences.
Yeah, and not for the conference altogether. Like the NHL, they can pick anyone they want from either side, either conference. They don't pick just from their conference.
Yeah, I think we'll see how it plays out.
So AP can't play with Peyton Manning. in the Pro Bowl.
Right. Not bad, if that's the first pick that he wants.
Yeah, but it would be nice having the conference intermingle in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, why not? Well, I'll tell Dominique that that's your suggestion. We got about 5 minutes left here before I've got to go to yet another meeting today. So,
what are the NFLPA going to be doing about the players that are going to be coming out gay, openly gay?
Well, us as a union, we take the position, and we have in our collective bargaining agreement that there should be, or that there, let me rephrase that there should not be a discrimination of any kind in the locker rooms or anywhere else in our business. You saw us take a pretty strong position, and the New York Attorney General's office is now looking into some of the line of questioning that was conducted for prospects at the combine. Do you like girls is not exactly the right type of question to be asking a prospect, no matter what company you work for. So those are things that we want to make sure we enforce. Look, beyond that, I think the conversation has now been started and has been led by a number of NFL players. You mentioned Chris Kluwe; he's been active on this front. Brendan Iambadejo, Scott Pagita, Dominique Foxworth, all of those guys have really stepped up and talked about the importance of not discriminating somebody based on their sexual orientation, and I think that's where it starts.
Last one for me, George, and I appreciate you taking some time today out of your schedule to answer our questions. And since this is kind of relevant right now with the NFL draft 2 weeks away, what is the NFLPA's stance on the eligibility rule for the NFL draft? I mean, currently players have to be 3 years removed from high school, and you look at a player like a Clowney from South Carolina. I think there's a couple other guys that take out, that $1 million policy or up to $5 million policy. I mean, is there any wiggle room whatsoever for the NFL to be lenient on that rule, or will that be a rule that kind of is set in stone and really is not going to change, do you think?
That is probably the toughest question I get every year this time of year, especially when you've got a guy or a player like Clowney who is not eligible but clearly is a standout talent and could be ready to play in the NFL, and by most accounts is ready to play in the NFL tomorrow. Unfortunately, I don't have a better answer for you other than it's in our collective bargaining agreement right now that there are eligibility rules that prospects have to abide by. I've already shared my not-so-tongue-in-cheek feelings about the endless free pool of a minor league system, if you will, of college football for the NFL. Look, as this collective bargaining agreement grows, we're in year 2.5 now of 10. That might be something we look into. We'll have to play that by ear and see what the players tell us. That's who we work for ultimately. All right. Well, again, it's 3:57 according to my watch. I've got to do 2 things before I let everybody go. For purposes, Rick and James and Joby before, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to try to do this again at least once every 3 to 4 weeks, so hopefully we'll have you guys back on again and we can kind of build a broader base of fans to have these types of discussions. 2 things I want you guys to help me plug. First, we're going to do another Google Plus live hangout on the eve of the draft. That's Wednesday night on the eve of the NFL draft. From 7 to 8 p.m., and it's going to include some of the top rookies that are going to be in the green room. Be sure to plug that and tell people about that, because it'll be your first opportunity to engage with some of the top prospects that are going to get drafted on draft night. I'll be hosting that along with draft guru Greg Cozell.
Nice.
So that should be a pretty cool one. We'll get about 5 to 10 minutes with each.
Do you know the time?
What's that?
Do you know the time of it?
Yeah, 7 to 8 p.m. on the eve of the draft at the NFLPA's debut event. And details will be coming early next week on all the platforms. And the second thing that we're doing on draft day is an event that you guys can stream on our Google Plus page. We're hosting an event with Blogs with Balls at Google NYC on the morning of the draft. I think that's a 9:30 or 10 a.m. to noon event. There's going to be 2 panels of sports experts, and that's when people will get their shot to ask DeMaurice Smith, the executive director of the NFLPA, pretty much any question that they want. So, for everybody out there that's watching or will watch this at some point, be sure to add the NFLPA to your circles and RSVP. So, I think I did my part as a pitch man. Maybe Papa John will call me later.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely help you plug that. I mean, I think this is great. The fantastic opportunity about the Google Plus community is just being able to interact with you directly and getting the information and from the source of the horse, so to speak. So
we appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
All right, James, no tuck rule.
Thank you. Yeah, no tuck rule. I'm so happy about that.
All right, take care, y'all.
Thanks, guys.
All right, later.